So today we're going to install NFsen. It's a network flow monitoring software. It's open source, so it's free to use. And we're going to install it on a CentOS 7 system. Currently I have a basic minimal install of CentOS, so I'm going to log in. I'm going to update the system. After our updates are complete, I'm going to make sure to turn off SE Linux. You can leave it on if you want to. I turned it off for this tutorial. I like VI. I think it's easier to navigate. But you can choose your favorite text editor. Next, I'm also going to turn off IP tables. Oh, love when you get a typo. I'm going to reboot to make sure both settings took effect. After your server is rebooted, reconnect it again and log in. I'm going to verify that SE Linux is disabled. And I'm also going to verify that IP tables is not running. Not running and disabled is exactly what I want. Now that I've verified IP tables and SE Linux are turned off, I'm going to install some prerequisites to NFsen. I'm going to go ahead and copy the commands in here, but I'll post a link as to where you can find them. Go ahead and let it run through the install. It may take a few minutes depending on your system. Now that my software prerequisites are installed, I'm going to make a few modifications and just make sure everything's up to date. So first I'm going to edit my PHP to make sure it's in the correct time zone. You can see it here. I'm going to change the time zone to America Denver, which is the one I'm in. And then I'm just going to do a yum update and make sure everything's good. No package is marked for update. Let's go ahead and continue. Next, I'm going to add a user for netflow and add him to the Apache group. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create some directories that are going to specify later in the configuration. These directories are going to be used by NFsen as the base directory and the HTTP HTML directory. Now I'm going to download the latest source files for NFsen and NfDump. NfDump is the software platform that collects the flows and then processes them and dumps them into NFsen, where NFsen then reads them. They're downloaded. I downloaded them into the op directory. They're the only thing in there. Next, I'm going to start the HTTPD service. Now that I've started the HTTP service, I'm going to go into our NfDump downloaded tar file for NfDump, and I'm going to untar it and start the install process. I've moved into the NfDump directory, and then I'm going to run the install. The options I specify enable it to collect netflow and sflow data. So if your device dumps netflow or sflow packets, NfDump will be able to process them. Now I'm running the make and the make install command just to get everything going. Now that that install is done, I'm going to start on the NFsen part of installation. You will get some warning messages in the install for NfDump. There's warnings like right here. Don't worry about those. They're just warnings that show up. So now I'm gonna go back into the oops. I'm gonna go back into the op directory and untar the NFsen. I'm going to go into the NFsen directory that I've just untarred. I'm going to make a copy of the NFsen default configuration that it comes with. And then after I make the copy, I'm going to edit the copy I made. The changes I'm going to make now are the changes you're going to need to make as well. There's a number of items. First, we want to make sure the base directory is what it needs to be. The current setting that I have here is what I want. I'll now go to the HTML directory where I do have to make a change. Again, I'm using VI, but you can use whatever text editor you would like. I'm also going to change the profile directory, or the prefix directory, to point it to the NfDump installation. Change this to Apache. Scroll down to your sources. Your sources are where you're going to define the devices that are going to send NetFlow data. I'm just going to comment out the default options here, and then I'm going to copy and paste and then rename this particular item. In my case, I'm running a pfSense firewall. The port here will be the port you're going to send your dumps to. 995 is an acceptable port. Since I only have one device, I'm going to leave it like that. You can also change the color. In my notes for installation that I'll provide a link to, I'll give you a good site where you can find different hex colors to use. My type is netflow, so as far as this goes, I'm done. Next, I'm going to scroll down for one last modification for this file to the plugins. In this tutorial, I'm also going to show you how to install FlowDoh, which is a plugin for NFsen that provides some valuable data. We'll install FlowDoh in a minute, but I'm going to enable the plugin now. That's my last change in this config file. So I'm going to escape and write out. Now that I have NFsen config file configured, I still need to run the install. I'm going to cd back. I'm going to change directory back a level, and then I'm going to run the install. Just select the default here. Now, one of the things we're going to do with NFsen is we're going to create a startup script for it. This file is empty because we're going to create it. This file will allow it to start and stop during boot up, but also I can run commands to start, stop, or restart it. Now I need to make sure that file, that startup script I just created, is executable. Now I could start NFsen here, but I'm going to go ahead and configure FlowDoh before I start it. I'm going to go back to the op directory. So I can download FlowDoh. You can see that I have FlowDoh downloaded. Now I'm going to extract it. And I'm going to run some commands here to copy the files and move them and change their permissions in order to get it installed. Now there's two different parts to FlowDoh. You got to move some plugin settings to a back end and the front end. Right here I'm doing both back end and front end. I've copied those commands in pretty quick. They'll be in the install file with a link in the video. Now that I've got FlowDoh configured and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and start NFsen. I've gone ahead and typed in the URL to my NFsen server. My IP address /nfsen/nfsen.php. When you first connect it, you may have an error up here. This is backend version mismatch. If you do, just click one of the other tabs, then go back home. It will disappear. Next, I'm going to go into my pfSense firewall. I've downloaded FlowDoh so I can dump my files to it. I'm going to change my port here to the same port I had configured in my NFsen config file. I'm going to tell it the host what interface I want it to run on. I'm going to change netflow version from 10, which is default, to 9, and I'm going to change it to full tracking. I'm a geek. I want all the information. There's no other changes I need to make, so I'm going to hit save. Now that I've saved it and I have my device dumping information to my NFsen server, I'm not going to see any data here because it takes a little while to process everything. What I'm going to do is make sure I'm getting data. I'm going to see what my links are, my interfaces on my NFsen server. ENS160 is my interface. I'm going to do a TCP dump. Choose my interface. And tell it what port I'm looking for. You'll start getting some dumps here as the device dumps your netflow data. You can see this source port and the destination port. It says Palace 4 here. That's just because of the port number I used is also associated with something else on the server. Depending on what port you pick, it may just say the port number here. I'm going to go ahead and Control-C out of that. I can see I have 3 packets captured, 4 were received by the filter. Now I go back to my web server, and though it's still blank, it may take a little while to fill in the data as NfDump processes and then NFsen picks up the data. Just give it some time. I have noticed that a lot of times it takes a while for the graphs to start dumping data. But once you have data, you can come into the graph, scroll all the way over, and you can see that the pfSense has started processing, or not the pfSense, but my NFsen server has started processing data flows. I can scroll down and look at this and look at additional information by selecting any number here. Your data may be different. You can put multiple hosts in here to give you data. I only have one host, but you can do as many hosts as you want. You just have to size your server appropriately. This is just running on. This is a VM. My CentOS is a VM that just runs on my home ESX server. Not very powerful, but it'll give me exactly what I need for this case. Make sure we go into our plugins. Here we can see our top talkers with FlowDoh. The host address, its IP, and the amount of data. You can click on the list of flows, and top talkers will give you additional information. I really like FlowDoh. It gives you some valuable information. That's it for this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below.